Hello and welcome to Lightcast webinars. We're really excited to have you with us today. We're talking about digital badges, but within the context of how local authorities are using them. We have with us a great lineup of guests, but our main presenter will be Will Cookson and Tim Ritchies. So if you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please put them in the questions box on your control panel, and we will endeavour to get back to those at the end of the presentation. I will also be sending you out a follow-up email, which will give you the recording and the slides from today. But without any further ado, I'll hand over to you, Will. Hi, Will.
Hi, Debbie, and welcome to everyone that's joining us today. So just to kick off, this is the second webinar that we have done in partnership with Navigator. Slightly different focus today because we're really going to get into the operational use cases, how the Navigator platform is being used on the ground. So really excited to get to that, and we've got some great guest speakers who will be introducing when we get to that. Just wanted to do a brief introduction to Lightcast for anyone that doesn't know of us. We are a global leader in labour market analytics. Our mission is to unlock new possibilities in the labour market. Now, we do that through connecting people with jobs by providing businesses, communities and education institutions with the best labour market data possible. And that data can then be used, and that insight can be used to enable better, faster and more informed decisions to be made across communities, essentially. Now, across the UK, we work with local and national government, education organisations, higher education, further education colleges, learning providers, and also the private sector, who we tend to support with talent and recruitment needs. So I wanted to quickly explain the partnership that we have with Navigator. Just to say, this is nothing new. It was established in 2021. We're always interested in how the insight and data that we have on the labour market can be taken into new spaces. And that's what's so exciting with the partnership with Navigator, because having job postings data and the type of insight that we have aligned with digital badging is really new ground for us. And I don't think there's anyone doing what Navigator are doing in the UK. Our products are often used in a strategic planning environment. So to see them being used in an operational space where they can go on to inform the way in which people can look at their skills needs and their skills requirements and take that into a community setting is really exciting. And that's what we'll be discussing today. I think now might be a good time to introduce Tim. I don't know whether, Tim, you had anything further to say in regards to introducing Navigator, or if you would like me to do the move on to the next slide.
Yeah, sure. Move on to the next slide, please, Will. And yeah, as Will said, what's really exciting about today is we're moving on from looking at the platform and the functionality and all the innovations which are connecting badges to jobs. And we looked at that last month. And we'll share that file with you again in case you missed that webinar. So that's a real deep dive into the tools. And we're moving the focus now onto the trailblazers who are doing some really incredible, innovative work in cities to actually operationalize this, as you said. So just a quick introduction to Navigator then. Navigator is a suite of tools. It's designed for local government and communities. And it's designed to help map, recognise and connect all learning wherever it happens across the city. The mission really is to create an alternative way to recognise all of people's skills and use those skills to connect people with work opportunities which really match their learning and experience. In terms of the technology, we use badges to recognise learning, pathways to connect people with opportunities, and we use the Lightcast common skills language, that big data language, which is derived from millions and millions of job adverts around the world, and that helps us make the connections between skills and jobs. One thing I did want to mention before we dive in, sort of exciting news, if you want to get your hands on any of these tools after the webinar, we're opening up the platform for people to try the software, try creating badges and pathways, and see how your programs connect to jobs locally as well. So just head over to the Navigator website to find out more about how to do that. So if we go to the next slide, please, Will. So in last week's session, we talked about the fact that millions of badges are created worldwide and issued worldwide by well-known organisations like City and Guilds Group, Open University, Pearson's and others. But also it's a real missed opportunity if those badges aren't connected through into pathways that lead people to real opportunities for work. And that was the original vision of Open Badges. Next slide, please, Will. I'm always interested to look back at the kind of history of ideas and where they come from, and I found this diagram from 2012, which was the original diagram that set out the vision for Open Badges from Mozilla Foundation. They were called Open Badges because the aim was that they would go beyond standard qualifications, and it would sort of open up the field so other people could recognise learning in different settings. So starting at the top then, the idea is that organisations create badges and they put their backing behind them. It could be online programs, universities, employers. They then issue them to learners. They then store them on profiles, share them on LinkedIn, which then leads to opening up opportunities. So to realise this vision, I think one thing that wasn't in this vision is the need for a common skills language that connected the learning experiences and the job opportunities. And the piece in the middle around LinkedIn and sharing on CVs, that's really great as well. But one of the things that we've recognised is there's a lot of heavy lifting for individuals to do, from getting their badges to getting to that job opportunity. And we want to really streamline that process so people can just see how their badges sort of connect through to jobs, and we'll be seeing some more of how that works in practice today. So in order to for this all to work, for the ecosystem to work, you need really well-designed badges. Next slide, please, Will. And in 2012, those badges were created using paper. So but the limitation of that is that we're limited by people's knowledge, and now machines can help us do a much better job of badge design. So badges now, in terms of the design process, in terms of the tools, we have really powerful tools that are powered by big data, smart skills technology that help organisations design badges and make sure that they align with jobs data as well. And then connecting all those badges into pathways. Next slide, please. I think we've got slightly out of order, but maybe the next slide on again. So if we connect those badges together, then we can form pathways that lead to real tangible opportunities, which is what today's session is all about, really. And in order for badges to have real currency, you know, we strongly believe that they have to connect through to real opportunities. So in terms of where that's happening in practice, the Cities of Learning programme is doing some really innovative work. So maybe slide before, Will, sorry. They've got mixed up somehow. The Cities of Learning programme is doing some incredible innovation in this space, and they've invested in the technology, which is fantastic. And one of the things that I think one of the things about cities and places, and why this potentially works really well in that setting, is that local authorities have the relationships with local employers and training providers, so they're able to broker the relationships to create these pathways. So, you know, it's fantastic having all of these tools available to people, but having those personal relationships, I think, is really, really key. So what I'd like to do now is I'm really excited to introduce Nicole Donaghy. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that Nicole now is one of the global leaders in creating digital skills pathways that lead to job opportunities. So I'm really excited to hear about the latest developments in Belfast. So I'm going to hand over to you, Nicole, now.
Thank you, Tim, and wow, what an introduction. I hope I live up to it today. My name is Nicole Donachie and I am from Belfast City Council. I work within the Economic Development Unit as an Employability and Skills Officer, and it's absolutely fantastic to be here today, so thank you, Tim. Can I go on to the next slide there, please, Will? So I'm just going to run through very briefly what I want to talk to you about today. I'm just going to cover off the employability and skills sort of approach and what we do in Belfast City Council. I'm going to talk a wee bit about the journey that we have gone through and then a little bit of our reflections on the learnings today. So Will, if I could have the next slide there, please. Okay, so I thought it would be really good just to begin with to talk about our approach and sort of, I suppose, our current model within the employability and skills team. Everything within our unit, we actually identify demand and we develop employability and skills initiatives to help our residents move into sustainable employment. And for the last 5 years, we have been designing and delivering employment academies in a range of different sectors that you can see on the screen there in front of you today. I will talk about how we go about that in a wee second, but I just thought it was important for you to see the breadth of work across those 7 sectors that we're currently working within. So at present, we have 25 employment academies that we are delivering across these different sectors. So you can see the likes of our fibre splicing, we have transport academies, we've got leisure and hospitality, and we've got upskilling academies. And all of these academies have been designed to help and support those that are furthest removed from the labour market, people that are economically inactive, people that potentially have been impacted by COVID, and also school leavers. So these are our target audiences of support that we want to work with through the actual academies itself. Can I go on to the next slide, please, Will? Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk about sort of exactly how we go about actually designing these employment academies. And it's really important to note that we begin with really drawing on information and data, and that's from the University of Ulster's Economic Policy Centre, UUEPC. So within this, they garner a wealth of information, but specifically we look at growth sectors, we look at shifts, changes and trends within sectors, we look at salaries within sectors. This is a really important one for us. Whenever we're designing an employment academy, we want to ensure that we're not providing our residents with entry-level positions, but we're providing them with career pathways. So those salary sectors and information is vitally important for us. And we also look at the demographic breakdowns as well and the information from the university, and this helps us with our target audiences. We then move on to the local labour market engagement, and again we're gathering more information. This is real-time data, so we're looking at the stresses and the pressures and challenges to recruitment from employers. So both of these stages actually enable us to then identify what we call the demand. So absolutely everything that we do within our department is demand-led, and this means that we produce a very high into-employment rate off the back of our employment pathways or academies. We would sort of operate at around 75% into employment rates on most of our academies, and some of those operate at 100%, and that's really done by that sort of initial steps of gathering that information sort of very carefully at the beginning. Once we've identified the demand, then we work really closely with our training providers and our employers. Our training providers are employability and skills practitioners with a wealth of experience, and we design these academies in line with their experience, and we also co-design with the employers. So we're looking specifically with employers at that industry-specific training and skills that they require, those stepping stones that's needed to move into employment within their sector or within the actual business itself. And then the final stage for us is the pilot. So we launch our pilot with a small cohort and test that out to see what's actually happening through the academy. We gain the sort of experience then from our residents that are moving through the academy, and we also look at the into-employment rates to see if there's anything that we could sort of reflect on or do differently. With all of the employers that we work with, each and every one of those employers will provide an interview for all of our participants that move through those academies. So the into-employment rates are very high through the actual academies itself. Will, would you mind moving on to the next slide for me, please? Perfect, thank you. So our initial interest, why we actually became involved in the actual project itself, was, I suppose, to begin with, we really looked at sort of our strategic priorities, our Belfast agenda and our inclusive growth strategy. All of the priorities aligned basically within digital badging, and it was a natural step for us to look at this project in greater depth. Our intention was that they would also add additional value and provide sort of confidence and motivation for those that were moving through our academies by the celebration of those micro credentials of learning. We also knew or hoped that it would actually improve the attendance on our programme, and it has. It's really helped with attrition. We also wanted to provide digital references through the actual academies by way of the badging and the pathways. And really we wanted to look at increasing and further sort of developing those into employment rates that we have through the academies at the moment. But one of the beautiful aspects of the badging was to connect residents to further opportunities through the Navigator platform and providing sort of linkages through to other training providers and through to other employers through the work on the jobs feed. Well, could I have the next slide there, please? Perfect. So I just wanted to really detail out about Belfast Journey. We have come quite a way actually in the space of a year, and that gave me the opportunity to sort of reflect on this. We began our journey back in October 21 with RSA Cities of Learning. And we started to very carefully sort of plan out our approach. We decided we were going to look at a two-phase approach, and we began phase 1 in February of 2022. We took a little bit of time to reflect on those and sort of talk about our learnings and apply that into phase 2, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then we got to a really exciting stage in June where we started to talk about pathways, and that's when things really started to come to life and really start to look at the impacts to our residents. We introduced this pathways session to our funded members. We currently have 20 organisations that Belfast City Council fund across Belfast to write and issue their own badges, and we started to introduce pathways to them. In October, the Navigator platform launched, which was a really exciting time for us because all of those lovely conversations were really starting to begin to come to life. We started off this year by doing a little bit of reflection and looking at our learner journey and starting to glean some learnings as to what we could do differently to help sort of improve the service for our learners. And really excitingly, in March of this year, we did a full migration across onto the Navigator platform. So a very exciting time for us in Belfast. All of our organisations, including ourselves, are now fully fledged and on the platform and active, and there's lots of activity on it. So it's a really exciting phase for us. Well, can I have the next slide, please? Perfect, thank you. So lots has actually happened in this space of time. We have ourselves in council published 115 badges across our entire network. We're looking at 150 badges with our organisations. We have produced 9 pathways, and we have issued badges to over 1,000 earners in the city, and we're working with 20 businesses to help support the badging project. Well, can I have the next slide, please? I thought it was really important when I had the opportunity to talk to everyone today that I just sort of put it on the table and talk about our challenges. Naturally, challenges whenever you're looking at any new and innovative way of working, or you're challenging how someone is actually sort of working, it takes a little bit of time just to introduce and to educate sort of on that piece. And that definitely was a challenge right across the board for us, just to increase awareness of digital badges to our learners as well, to educate them on a new way of sort of accessing learning and using the badging and the platform moving forward. And then also with the employers to actually sort of recognise those digital badges as part of their recruitment tool. So that really is the challenges, I suppose, that we faced in Belfast, is around that messaging piece. I have to be very honest that it's always a positive conversation. Everybody loves digital badging. It's just around sort of encouraging people to work differently. Next slide there, please, Will. Okay, so just talking about our learning, we sort of found this quite early on, and it's something that I always talk to our funded members about, and I think it's important just to kind of impart, I suppose, a little bit of our early pains. But our learning was very much too many cooks spoil the broth. So our little bit of advice to anyone is appoint a point of contact, somebody who's going to become a badging ambassador for you, who's really going to lead on that project. It just makes things massively more successful, and that person drives the project forward. I talked about our sort of phased approach of phase 1 and phase 2. So we planned things out very carefully and looked at the different stages, and then we gave ourselves a little bit of space to actually reflect on that, and that worked fantastically for us. One of the big sort of pieces of advice I give to any of our businesses that we are working with is to always consider the value of that badge and that pathway to your users. So your users are your earners and your employers. It's vitally important to look at sort of the value and the use of that badge for them and the content. And the main thing that underpins everything with regards to badging and pathways is that employer language. You must pay particular attention to the employer language. And we are really fortunate in Belfast that we've developed fantastic connections and relationships with our employers that enables them to actually co-design the content and the pathways for us. So it's always in line with employer language, but that's a vitally important step for this process. Well, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is our technology pathway. We have a number of different pathways, and for anyone that was on the call previously on the first session, you would have had the opportunity just to look at our technology pathway. This is just an indication of really the celebration of learning, the breakdown of sort of content that you can see within the actual digital badges and the pathway. For this particular academy, it has been co-designed by two anchor employers within Belfast, and they have actually mapped out the skills and the training that's required in order for someone to move into a position of employment with them. I would stress that our participants that come onto the programme have no formal qualifications, so by the end of the actual programme they're moving into a very lucrative position actually with an organisation that secures a salary of around about 25,000 to 30,000 depending on the actual offer. So it's been a fantastic process for those to move through, but you can see an example of some of those badges that they've attained, the likes of Principals in ICT, Microsoft Mentoring and Programming with Java and Product Management. Lots of lovely detail that our learners would never be able to articulate. They'd never be able to retain that information without the aid of the pathway and the badge. And indeed for the employers, it's such fantastic information for them actually to glean from the actual badges itself. You can see on the actual page the jobs feed there. It's such an amazing addition to the pathways. The tool itself is so vitally important with regards to helping sort of sustain further employment opportunities for our residents moving through academies with ourselves. And also whenever we have been specifically looking at the pathways and the badges, we've paid specific attention to the actual skills tags within the actual badges and pathways, and the work with the partnership of Lightcast and Navigator to produce that information and that guidance around the actual skills tag is an absolutely invaluable tool. Will, could I get the next slide, please? Okay, so you'll be glad to know I'm just moving on to my final sort of stage, and I just wanted to talk about Belfast's next steps. We plan to just further develop all of the academies that we have across all of our sectors. We plan to expand the support that we have with our digital badging community. We have 20 organisations we support at the moment, and we're hoping to extend that to 40 organisations by the end of the year. And we really want to focus the rest of our year looking at engagement. So we're really concentrating on our engagement with employers, and we are really delighted to be working with the councils on the call today with further focus around the schools, universities and colleges engagement. Thank you very much for your time. That is my Belfast City Council update.
Thank you. I'm just now going to introduce Lucy.
That's absolutely fantastic, Nicole. That's great. Thanks for that presentation. And we're if there are any questions for Nicole, do put them in the chat, and we'll go through this next presentation, and then we'll hopefully ask some questions from the attendees as well. So just on to Cambridge now. So Cambridge really embody, I would say, what it means to be a city of learning. They're recognising learning in every single setting across the authority, from informal learning right the way through to qualifications as well, and they've generated an impressive number of badges and pathways to do that. They're also doing some cutting edge work on capturing special category data as well, towards the original vision of using data to figure out which opportunities are working for which groups and why, and supporting better social mobility as well. So I'm really delighted to introduce Lucy Lang and Joanna Hodgson from Cambridge, and excited to find out more. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy, so I'm the co-project manager of Region of Learning, and we're just going to give you kind of overview of how we're embedding badges and the Lightcast labour market analytics into our initiative. So just to give you a bit of background, Region of Learning is a place-based initiative, and it does encompass all the values of the Cities of Learning movement, which is why we sort of aligned our vision with that. Our project aims to increase social mobility for young people aged 15 to 24 across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, which has been recently acknowledged as being in the bottom 25% of the country for social mobility. So Region of Learning connects an ecosystem of learning and experiences in around formal education frameworks and sort of maps these skills-based opportunities to real-time career opportunities. Next slide, please, Will. So our key drivers for taking a previously tested prototype, something that was tested back in 2017, where we looked at sort of rewarding young people with badges for their engagement with arts and culture regionally. We had that kind of data drive where our research sort of informed us that, you know, by taking part in additional learning activities, a young person was 25% more likely to do well in education. For a young person to engage and build on transferable skills, they are 50% less likely to develop mental health challenges and are then twice as likely to continue their learning journey and have a greater chance of employment, which is really the kind of main drivers for us to improve those skills gaps and improve social mobility. So the Cities of Learning movement really reflected our own aims, and through digital badging and the validation of informal learning using a badging standard endorsed by City and Guilds, and by joining the National Cities of Learning community, we now work to increase participation of, you know, informal learning across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and to provide accessible routes to employment based on Lightcast labour market analytics. So from an employer, this model widens talent pipelines and levels the playing field for prospective candidates. Next slide, please. So within 18 months of launching, Region of Learning has successfully onboarded 42 providers. This is a continuation. As Tim said, we're working across different sectors. So we have cross-sector representation, libraries, arts and culture, community learning, and formal education. And we have great pathway collaboration and have issued over 1,000 badges to date. Next slide, please. So we really want to improve, you know, the chances of our young people regionally, and to provide our young people with the great advantage of being able to assess their own skills and identify potential new skill sets. So our current badges embed the Lightcast skills taxonomy to create that shared currency between the learner, the provider, and the employer. Our XP badge collection, which you can see here, is available for all onboarded providers and employers to use, and to use as part of their own Navigator membership. They can be adopted, rebranded, and embedded within Navigator accounts and included in pathways. Next slide, please. So our XP badges are created because of a continuing skills analysis of the local area based on our Lightcast market analytics and also our regional consultations that we deliver. The badges encompass essential skills for entry-level employment roles across several of our growth sectors, and inform integrated pathways to real-time employment opportunities, which is where we bring in the Lightcast jobs feed. Next slide, please. So our ecosystem also champions a holistic learning approach, and our service as Region of Learning really builds on sort of meaningful partnerships and champions sort of collaborative working to make more meaningful and accessible career pathways. So this is just an example pathway of how Region of Learning can align the Lightcast jobs feed within a strategic programme such as the Employer Pledge Initiative at Anglia Ruskin University, and then retracing those steps through the university's own programme, so the student at the heart of it, a knowledge exchange programme, and then right back before that undergraduate level with the school's outreach service. So I'm just going to hand over to Jo, who's going to talk more about how we're embedding badges within our own setting. Thank you.
I'm Jo Hodgson. I'm the other co-project manager at Cambridge City Council, and it's a really exciting time for us. Can I have the next slide, please, Will? Because I'm just going to share, and this is hot off the press. We've been working on pathways for employers, and one of the first things is obviously embedding it as the lead organisation within ourselves. So Cambridge City Council have or are aiming to work on their own pathways within their own organisation. Now, there's many reasons for this, one of which is that we all have to undertake various amounts of learning and development. And then one thing a council always does very well is offer learning and development opportunities. And as many councils are going through, we're all going through transformation. So we're also learning about how we structure our learning and development. So digital badges sit perfectly with this within an organisation such as ourselves. We are developing our corporate induction programme badges so that it's easy to track learning and development of an employee. It engages the learner, or in this case the employee, within the ecosystem for Cambridge. So not only are they tracking their own development within an organisation, they're also tracking their access to other opportunities. So once they become onboarded, they within the council, they also become onboarded on the platform. They can see the ecosystem that's developed, which is symbiotic, so it grows and develops with the needs. And they can also see their own pathway through the organisation. Now, as with large organisations, there's need to grow talent, there's certain developmental needs like the data skills and deficit, which we're very conscious of. So this goes to some way to enable the organisation to deal with these issues. So we want to pioneer and learn how an organisation such as the City Council, who are essential and central to skills and learning within the area, can visualize the pathway through an organisation, grow its own talent, meet its own skills needs, highlight motivational aspects and find where areas are not met, what skills are available and not available, and then meet those needs with learning and development opportunities. So it's hugely data driven. We can see what the uptake is, we can see where the skills are, and where the skills are not, and then meet those needs with providers either internally or externally. So this is really exciting. So the council are going to 850 employees, will all become part of the programme, will all be onboarded, they'll follow through their own corporate induction, which leads to additional badges. They can see pathways within and throughout the organisation, and they can therefore link to live labour markets, not only find opportunities within the organisation, but also beyond within their new skill sets. And so that's where we're working at this point. This comes perfectly in time with all our transformations. So as the organisation is developing and growing, we can embed this type of learning. We can invest in our employees. Something that seems to have appeared anecdotally with our consultations with employers is that they don't have funding, time, money to meet the skills deficit. But this relationship of identifying the skills that are absent is really important for then providers to meet that need, and they can work agilely to do so. So this is very hot off the press, so very excited that this is all due to come in stream in the next few months. Next slide, please, Will. So where are we going next? Well, the sky's the limit, and that's always the problem. Where do you start? The next step for us is really engaging the young users in the ecosystem. We want this to be something that addresses the needs of the people who are local. We want them to be able to find their own pathways, but also have pathways pointed out to them. So we're developing our user base by working directly with formal education settings and providers in our local area to see can they onboard users? Can they use the platform for their own situation? So we've got the example of Cambridge Regional College, who are using it to badge their skill sets. But then they're seeing and becoming part of the wider ecosystem of the area. Can they access other skills? Can they find pathways for their young people into employment? That leads into the engagement with schools on the webinar on the 21st of June, which will be really exciting for not only offering information about onboarding onto the site and the digital badges themselves, but also finding out from the schools how they'd like to use it. Because that's the interesting and the exciting bit that Nicole referred to. When you talk to people about digital badges, they go, oh, this is a fantastic opportunity. We could use it like this. And there's always something new that comes out of those conversations. We are also working within the process of the local skills improvement partnership plan, which is being under consultation at the moment, and we are going to position ourselves as one of the solutions to meet some of those needs that are coming up through the consultation process. We'd love to hear from you if you've got any suggestions, but this is where we're heading, and it's been great to be able to share our progress so far.
Thanks so much, Lucy and Joe. That was really, really inspiring, and lots of practical takeaways as well. Well, I don't have access to the questions in the chat. I'm not sure if we've got questions that have come from.
We've definitely got some. So I'm going to let me move myself onto the next slide. Yeah, I've got a range of questions here. So what I was suggesting is if I share them, Tim, and then you help me to field them to the right person. A couple of ones right from the start, which were already, one was for Nicole, was asking Nicole if she could expand on what she meant by employer demand. Is that about communication with employers directly, and or more about forecasting employer needs via data collection?
Thank you for that question. It's actually both. So that really is the first two sort of points on our approach whenever we're designing an academy, is we look first of all at sort of that data and that intelligence from the university, and then we also go and we speak to employers. Employers are constantly speaking to us. We've built up a wealth of relationships through the council with our employers and with different sectoral bodies. So they're constantly communicating with us to let us know if there's any stresses or challenges within the sector. So through those two sort of areas, that's where we sort of really highlight that there's a particular demand or a need within a sector, and then that's when we would sort of communicate with our delivery partners and our training providers to really put sort of a solution in place for that employability need.
Thanks, Nicole. Tim, this might be one for you, or it might be for someone else, we'll see. This is really asking, how do employers understand the value of an applicant's digital badge if there are so many and they can be awarded by many organisations and for many things? So how does that value of a badge get communicated and understood by an employer?
I think I'll field that one to Nicole, actually, who's actually and Cambridge, if you want to answer it as well, just because you're dealing with those questions day to day with employers. So what's your take on it?
I'm happy to jump in first there, actually. Thank you, Tim. Whenever we're working with the employers through the actual academies, we present sort of the pathway, and we present the badges as a way to illustrate sort of the work and the structure of what we do when we're working with new employers. And employers absolutely love the content within the digital badge. For someone to articulate in an interview or on their CV that they've done a particular course, it really doesn't tell the employer an awful lot about the actual skills that they've learned or the experiences that they've actually achieved, whereas the actual digital badge provides such lovely content around the description of the course and a breakdown of the actual criteria. The fact that it's actually issued by, for example, ourselves in Belfast City Council, we're digitally verifying that learning has taken place. So the employer themselves have full confidence that that learning has been verified by ourselves and through our delivery partners. So they absolutely love the content. It really helps them to match up the skills based or achieved through the actual digital badge compared to what they're particularly looking for through that sort of recruitment process.
And that's interesting, actually, Nicole, because that's slightly different for us. You're right, the employers do love the skills side of things, and that's actually in many cases enabled them to review their own recruitment drive and how they're asking for applicants to present, and also what they want them to present. One of the organisations we spoke to were like, well, we always put a degree in by standard, and now using skills taxonomy through Lightcast, they're actually changing that viewpoint, which is incredibly important. We've also found that we offer, our badges aren't all issued by City Council, they're provided by the providers themselves. So that image, that visual of that logo of that organisation can often carry a lot of weight. City Council is a very important one, and we'll be doing that as well. But to have an organisation who's well thought of in the mental health arena issuing a badge around learning around mental health can carry an awful lot of quality assurance in itself. And I think knowing that you've had a range of experiences from a range of providers has added to the validation to the skills that people are learning for our from our learner point of view and for our employers.
I'm going to move it on because I've got a whole range of questions here, and I'm keen to go through them. But really interesting to see how it's different in both areas, but there are commonalities there. And I think the only thing I'd add, just from the outside looking in there, is obviously if employers can be directly involved in terms of the co-design element, and so I'd imagine that's one way in which they would be assured of the badge itself and what it pertains to if they're involved in the co-design. So
just quickly is that the badges are also there's a selection of different badges, but some of them are quality assured to the RSA standard, so they go through that quality assured process. There's also the potential to add endorsements, official endorsements on badges. For example, City and Guilds have added endorsement onto the badges that they've quality assured. And there's also alignment to standards and links to standards and qualification standards on badges as well. So there's kind of a web of connected features which all build up that trust, you know, from the brand and the person that stands behind it to the digital quality assurance and endorsement as well.
Tim, this is spooky. You've just answered one of the questions without being able to see them, as the question was, one of the questions was asking how digital badges can be quality assured so users know that there are common standards. And I think those examples you've mentioned in regards to the RSA and City and Guilds is relevant. I don't know if there's anything further that you would like to add around quality.
Just very quickly, that as different organisations come on board, obviously awarding bodies are used to quality assuring their own badges and their own standards. So we've got a couple of awarding bodies that are coming on board, and they're doing their own quality assurance as well, so that we have an ecosystem. Which, you know, some of the learning is informal, but it's quality assured by RSA, and some of it is formal, which is quality assured by membership organisations, awarding bodies, professional bodies, and the like.
I'm just going to try and squeeze in one or two more questions. We'll see how we go for time. One person was asking what training is available for cities, or what support I think is available for cities from Navigator. Cities and obviously local authorities that are interested in getting actively involved with the rollout of digital badging in their area.
Yeah, sure. So we have an approach that we've developed with the cities on the call and also Southampton as well. So it's a fully supported service that it takes you through looking at labour market data, which is an insights which are often developed by the Lightcast team and consultants. You might have some existing access to Lightcast or existing skills reports. You then feed that through into pathway design, check that your pathways actually do align to local job opportunities, and you can do that sort of right out of the box with the tools before you go on to then either connect in existing badges or create a brief to create new badges. And then just support and guidance on creating communication plans, and then using data which comes back from recognition data, progression data and pathways, which can then feed back into the process. And that's a process that has developed with the partnership from the cities and Cities of Learning. And the other thing I would say as well is that there's support from other cities as well, calls like this one, but also community calls that are organised by the RSA, and we do some calls around the platform as well. So there's chances to meet other people and share lessons, because it is a new field and it is evolving at the moment. So there's quite a strong sort of community support network as well to help you get up and running and make the most out of the technology.
I think that's it in terms of the questions that we have time to cover off. Just for anyone that's asked questions that we didn't get to, I will share them with Tim and with the panel so that they can respond. One thing that was asked and is always asked is it was in regards to contact details and the slides. The slides will be shared with everyone that's registered for the email, and that will include people's contact details if you want to get in contact directly either with Navigator or with any of the other people that have been on the panel today. So Tim, exciting. You mentioned this right at the start, but exclusive webinar offer I see in front of me. Do you want to share that again?
I mean, basically, if you head over to the Navigator site, you can register and you can get access to try the Navigator tools for free. So you can try making badges using existing, we'll give you some badges to issue, and you can try building some pathways and connecting to local job opportunities. And I often think that it's good just to get hands-on with the tools and, and experiment and play yourself. So yeah, do take advantage of that. Just head over to Navigator to find out more.
Okay, just to mention, and it's got mentioned earlier, we're going to have a further, so this will be the third in the series, slightly different focus, and it will be focused on how digital badges and work with employers are revolutionising career development in schools and colleges. That's going to be on the 21st of June at 3:30. We'll be sharing registration links for that with anyone that attended today, which just leaves me to thank all of the panel for everything that you have provided today. It seems from the amount of questions, seems like we've got a really engaged audience here. So I'm sure there's plenty more that we can do in terms of describing and explaining and supporting organisations that want to take this further. Tim, was there anything you wanted to add?
Thanks again to all the guests who've shared their insights today. It's been really inspiring. It's hard to catch up with all of or keep up to date rather with all of the really exciting work that's happening, but it's really inspiring, and I hope there's some real sort of practical takeaways for people. Also, just a quick thank you to Lightcast, to Will and Debbie who've hosted us again, which has been incredibly helpful. It's a great platform to communicate some of these ideas, and thanks to Catherine as well, who's been working in the background in Navigator to put everything together. These things take quite a lot of work in the background, so and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar, June 21st, again, as Will said, around schools and colleges. So thanks again.
Thanks all.